Recently, I returned from a trip to Antarctica, the Falkland Islands, and Argentina and Uruguay in South America. Nowhere was there a better opportunity for me to see group communication in action. Well, almost nowhere, although it is very essential to the lives of humans. Group communication is also very essential to the lives of animals, including penguins. While on the Falkland Islands, I was able to observe penguins communicating in groups and teams to make sure that they were safe and that the lives of their newly born or soon to hatch babies were also safe. Do we have this need as communicators, as human communicators in group situations? Well, yes and no. Not all of our communication in groups and teams is going to be life or death, but it is going to be essential to our jobs and our lives moving forward. I'm Dr. Heidi, and I am lucky enough to be able to share with you the introductory chapter of our textbook. In this chapter, we are going to reflect on the future, individual capabilities, and group memberships. In particular, this chapter emphasizes the impact of small and committed groups. As you can see here, the penguins don't always work in large groups. Sometimes they work in small teams. I wanted to let you know that I am recording this on my phone, projecting it on my TV, using my laptop at home. You can certainly do this as well. Once it's recorded on my phone, it's super easy to upload to YouTube and provide you a link for what I'm about to share with you. If you have trouble with any of these pieces, please let me know and I'll be happy to help you with the instructions. As I have mentioned, or will mention in the welcome video, you can do any of these tasks at home fairly simply, but I'm also available via video chat or telephone whenever you would like to make an appointment with me. With that being said, let's take a look at small group communication. So, getting started. One of the most important things when communicating with other people is storytelling. Storytelling is super important because it is the way that we have learned up until this point. In fact, this is the way that communication has helped people to learn throughout all of time. Storytelling is very important. If I had started out telling you I'm going to talk about chapter 1 in our textbook, it wouldn't have been as interesting as telling you about the penguins that I saw in Antarctica, in South America, and Stanley Falkland Islands. Stanley, of course, is the capital of the Falkland Islands, which belongs to the Brits. It helps us make sense of the world in an entertaining format. Effective group and team communication is crucial for success, and it involves understanding oneself and the audience. Learning communication skills is possible. People aren't born good communicators or not good communicators. We all can communicate when we are born, in one way or another. But to be more effective at it requires practice, studying others, adapting techniques to different contexts. You don't use the same communication to text people that you would in a job interview. Our classroom environment, in class or online, allows us a safe place to practice and refine our communication skills. This allows us to apply then to real-world scenarios. This is the purpose of my having you learn the material from one chapter to teach it to other people, and to apply it outside of our classroom in your everyday lives. Growth in communication abilities can open new opportunities and enhance career prospects. This is definitely something I talked about in my public speaking classes recently. The more you learn about how to communicate, the more effective you become, the better you become at communication, and the better the opportunities are for you to connect with others and work well with others. So, a little bit more on why study group communication. Consistently, no matter what textbook you look at or what employer you talk to, oral and written communication skills rank at the top of the requirements. They can teach you many other skills depending on whatever job you've applied for. But learning these skills is much more difficult, and much more difficult for people who aren't experts to teach. The top 5 personal qualities that are sought by employers include communication skills, strong work ethic, teamwork skills, initiative, and analytical skills. This was also mentioned in an audiobook that I was listening yesterday about the 6 types of geniuses in a working environment. Effective communication in teams and groups is essential across all fields, and it contributes to career success. Exercises suggested in this textbook include things like cold calling or writing a cold calling script, and maybe trying out a job description for someone who's going to be a social media manager. Those are just examples of when these skills might come into effect, but they're not just for people in communication fields. I mean, I was on a 14-day cruise. If the people who were sailing the ship didn't communicate with one another, we actually could have probably run into those icebergs in Antarctica. So what is communication? Of course, in every textbook you have to start with the basics. So communication is defined as the process of understanding and sharing meaning. It involves interaction between the participants. There are 8 essential components which you would see in any communication textbook describing the communication interaction process. The 8 components include the source, the message, the channel, the receiver, the feedback, the environment, context, and any interference there might be. The source, though not acting completely by itself or himself or herself at all times, imagines, creates, and sends the message in consultation with or in conversation with the receiver, who analyzes and interprets the message. Feedback is what is provided by both the sender and the receiver, and it increases the accuracy of the communication. In other words, it allows people to understand each other and to clarify any misunderstandings that there might be. Again, more on what is communication. The environment includes the physical and psychological atmosphere where the messages are sent and received. In our case, I am sending this from my home living room to you wherever you happen to be sitting once you're viewing the recorded message. There are also options for the setting, scene, and expectations of the individuals involved to be different. Maybe you're face-to-face, maybe you're speaking over the phone, maybe you're speaking via text, or even email. The interference is sometimes called noise, and the noise can be either internal or external. External noise is anything going on outside of you that you might be hearing, whether it's dogs barking, people knocking on a door, or you're outside and you can hear the traffic going by. That's external noise. Internal noise is things that are happening within, like I'm hungry, I'm tired, I have to do the laundry, I have to wash the dishes. Any of those things are the internal noises, which can impact the communication interaction. There are 2 models of communication that are discussed in this book. The transactional model of communication, where actions happen simultaneously, and the constructivist model, which is focused on the negotiated meaning. I wouldn't say that they are completely separate things. The transactional model needs to include the constructivist model so that the communication can happen and we negotiate meaning between sender and receiver. Communication in context. This context happens to be group communication, but there are other types. There's interpersonal communication, intrapersonal communication, public communication, and mass comm. Interpersonal involves self-talk, and it influences how individuals perceive and react to certain situations. Interpersonal communication involves two people and can range from intimate to formal interactions. This is another class that I teach at the community colleges where I've taught within the Colorado Community College system. I've also taught it at universities and colleges in other states. But if you want to and are more interested in that, you are also welcome to take that class. It can only enhance the experiences and the techniques, things that you've learned in this class. Group communication is a dynamic process involving 3 to 8 people, often breaking into smaller groups. And sometimes we go group communication 3 to 12 people. 12 is getting to be on the larger size to be considered a small group. Communication in context, a little bit more. Let's look at the other types, right? There's still public communication, which involves one person addressing an audience. This is like public speaking class, which is another class that I teach if you're interested in taking that. Again, it will only enhance what you've learned in group communication. Mass communication is when a single message is sent to a large audience, but there's no ability to tailor it because it's usually something like someone presenting a news broadcast, someone presenting a podcast, a YouTube video, or people communicating in writing, like an article that you might read online. So there's really no way to tailor the mass communication message. There's also cultural and corporate norms that are involved in all the communication types. And so some of these things influence our communication on a regular basis. Punctuality and meeting expectations. When I was in South America, sometimes people arrived on time, sometimes not. That would never happen in the United States. You would have to be on time because that's the expectation of our Western society. Effective communication in different contexts requires understanding the audience and using appropriate strategies to engage them. In other words, just because it's the expectation or the societal norm doesn't mean that it's right. It means that that's what people expect, but right communication is adapted depending on the situation. Effective communication is also adapted based on the different audiences and different expectations. There is not really a right way or a wrong way. There is just a more competent way for someone to communicate in different situations. Let's look quickly then at the advantages and disadvantages. Group communication differs from interpersonal communication in its formality, time sharing, intimacy, and time consumption. Working in a group takes a little bit longer than working in a partnership, and you must share time with more communicators. Working in groups can satisfy human needs, such as fellowship, support, inclusion, affection, and control. People like to do, or in part, use all of these skills. Some of them good, some maybe not so good. I like to feel included, but I don't like to have someone else be in control. And I don't always like to feel like I'm in control of a group either. Groups offer advantages though, like access to more information, because there are more people to provide it, diverse perspectives, and potential for synergy and social change. You know, small groups can initiate social change and put through grassroots efforts. These often happen in times of elections or changes to public policies, but it can happen within a company as well. Challenges in group work include the potential for conflict, misunderstandings, and the risks of deception or manipulation by the group members or group leaders. These are things that we're going to learn as we explore group communication this semester. Groups may face issues such as social loafing and groupthink. This can hinder group effectiveness. Again, these are terms that we will discuss as we go throughout this semester. Effective group work requires ongoing communication, coordination, and monitoring to avoid losing track of goals and processes. In the book that I was reading, that I mentioned, that talk about the 6 different types of geniuses, they also explored losing track of goals and processes and consistent monitoring. This is something that happens in businesses, in schools, and in other places where groups of people get together to accomplish tasks. One type of communication that we all use more frequently than we ever have is group communication and social media, or group communication and mediated messages. Social media is web-based and mobile technologies that enable interaction among people. These are divided into 6 types of communication: collaborative projects, blogs, content communities, social networking sites, virtual game worlds, and virtual social worlds. Facebook was expected to reach 1 billion users by 2012, and 10 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube every minute. While Facebook is losing its popularity for younger audiences, it is still popular among groups of ages 40 and over. Instagram, though, Snapchat, and others, and hopefully we continue with the use of TikTok, but as you know, that's been interesting in the United States lately. These all reach millions of users every minute. Social media is used to facilitate real-time, in other words, synchronous communication, or delayed communication, known as asynchronous communication. This allows groups to collaborate without actually being physically close to one another. The benefits of social media include maintaining contact, focusing on messages over status markers, and saving time and money. Risks include wasting time, spreading hurtful or dubious material, loss of social presence, and leaving digital tracks that can lead to criticism or legal action. In other words, we waste time on social media, we spread hurtful messages that we might not say if we were talking to someone face to face, and people can always find our messages even if they've been deleted. So, make sure that you are careful in this type of communication. Again, we will address some of these things throughout the semester. Groups should set guidelines, check privacy settings, monitor their online persona, protect passwords, share messages carefully, and respect copyright laws. Social media can be used to enhance group communication, but they must be used cautiously to avoid serious harm. Group communication is an exciting adventure, not just for us, but for all of animal and humankind, where groups get together to communicate. I hope that you have learned a little bit in this discussion of Chapter 1. Of course, there will be more to learn as the semester goes on, because as with every textbook, the first chapter is the introductory chapter that shares with you what we will be discussing throughout the rest of the semester.